My parents told me, "It's time you found a wife," then kicked me out from my jobless brother. So I bought the house and made him pay rent. Or leave. "You've always been jealous of me," my brother yelled. I smiled. "No. I just showed up, and now I own everything you thought was yours." This occurred over the course of several years. Utilizing fake disclaimers. I, a 32-year-old male, always knew my family considered me to be their backup son. You know how some parents pretend to love? Are all of their children treated equally? Mine didn't even try to conceal their bias. My brother Ethan was their pride and pleasure. Personally, I was just there. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Minneapolis, my mother would literally beam whenever Ethan entered a room. She'd corner random folks in church or the grocery store to boast about Ethan's recent accomplishments, while I stood there like a damn shadow. When he departed to prepare for college at Northwestern, she was depressed for months. Not exaggerating. She called him every day, just like she was going through withdrawal or something. It was truly pathetic to watch. They didn't hate me. I just wasn't Ethan. He was loud and played football and received all of the attention, his charismatic personality or being an annoying loudmouth. I was more reserved, but athletic. I wrestled in high school and even placed in state. Twice. However, somehow my trophies ended up in boxes in the basement. Participation medals from elementary school football had top display space in the living room. I am not even joking. This guy had a greatly improved certificate from 4th grade football hanging in the hallway until I moved out. I realized quite early that no matter what I achieved, I would never measure up to Saint Ethan. Even though I graduated with honors in business management and got solid work in a medical equipment distribution company, my mother responded, "That's nice, honey. I heard Ethan might be up for a promotion in his marketing firm." Mind you, Ethan had been up for promotion about 5 times already, and somehow never received it, possibly because he spent more time networking at bars than actually working. However, my parents would never acknowledge that. The worst part was that I accepted it. I assumed that's how families worked. Someone gets to be the golden child, and someone must be the spare. Guess which role I got stuck with? When I was 23, I was working. For about a year following graduation, my parents dropped what they believed to be good news. They were going to retire. Mom had me jumping between random part-time jobs. I worked at apparel businesses for years, and Dad was done as an insurance adjuster. Their great plan? I'd move back home to assist until Ethan had kids. Then they'd relocate to Colorado to be near him. Let's fast forward. Ethan and Lena still hadn't produced the grandchildren they were desperate for. Indeed, he was really struggling. He and his wife struggled to pay their payments in Denver. I hadn't seen him since I think it was 2 Christmases ago, and he spent the entire weekend complaining about his condominium, his boss, and pretty much his entire existence. He wore fancy clothing he could not afford. He would show up in these $300 jeans and new watches, grumbling about how the system was keeping him down. He scarcely acknowledged me, treating me as if I weren't family. The dog was only there for the background noise. Meanwhile, I was holding everything together. I had worked my way up to regional sales manager, which began paying rent to cover their expenditures. I took care of the house and yard. Everything. I even renovated their bathroom and constructed a balcony in the backyard with my own 2 hands. Put in these composite boards that do not splinter or decay. Did all of the railings. I am the whole 9 yards. My life wasn't ideal, but it was reliable. I had a good bunch of mates and played in a recreational hockey league. I dated when I had the time. But no matter what I did, my mother continued to discuss Ethan as if he were God's gift to humanity. When I closed a significant account, increasing my commission by thousands, Mom responded by asking if I could lend Ethan money since he was going through a hard stretch, the roughest. Having leased a BMW, he couldn't afford it and was now scared about the payments. But this wasn't the first. It was perhaps the 5th time they had asked me to bail him out. Every family gathering, it was the Ethan show. If he bothered to call in on holidays, everyone would crowd around the phone as if the president was on the line. If he deigned to visit, my folks would stay weeks preparing, getting his favorite foods, tidying his previous room like the queen was coming to stay. On my birthday, Mom would make a boxed cake. On Ethan's birthday, she would spend 3 days cooking all his favorites and invite the entire extended family. Then everything went to Ethan. He lost his job. He and Lena were already living together, living paycheck to paycheck, maxing out credit cards to preserve their picture. They were completely screwed. My mom behaved like this was the best news ever, not a joke. She virtually bounced in her seat at supper. "This is perfect," she squealed. "Ethan and Lena can move in while he regains his footing, and perhaps after they're situated, they will finally start a family." My stomach dropped. The way she stated it made it obvious she had been waiting for this. The same situation has played out for years. Never did she want to know what I thought about it. I was just expected to go along with whatever. Ethan, as usual, was in need. I remember staring at my plate and pushing around the mashed potatoes thinking, here we go again. Ethan fucked up and everyone bends over backward to accommodate him. It became worse. After a few evenings they sat me down for a family meeting. They wanted me to move out. There simply wasn't ample room for everyone, Mom stated, in a fake lovely voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a bride. Mom stated there was ample room for everyone, this in a fake lovely voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a bride and start your own family. But here's the kicker. They still expected me to continue paying rent even after I departed. I just sat there, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. For 5 freaking years I had put my life on hold to aid them. I had been the responsible one, while Ethan spent his life hundreds of miles away, and now they're kicking me out so Golden Boy and his wife might hijack my place. Dad must have noticed I was about to lose it, because he swiftly suggested I should take my time thinking about it. But I didn't need time. For the first time in my childhood I saw my parents for what they really were. It was never about being fair or recognizing what I had done for them. It was always about Ethan. I recall thinking, let's get this straight. You want me to move out of the house I've been keeping and paying for so Ethan can move in? And you still expect me to pay rent after I leave? Mom had the audacity to say, well, we're on a fixed income. Now, Ethan will need time to discover a new job. It would only last until he gets back on his feet. And how long will that be? I asked. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you know Ethan, he's so talented. He'll find something in no time. Yeah. Just like all those other times he was on the verge of success, I muttered. I've heard that song before. By morning, that emptiness had hardened into pure rage. I kept replaying every family dinner where they talked about Ethan, instead of asking about my promotion. Every time Mom displayed his old high school shirts to visitors, while my wrestling trophies accumulated dust in the garage, every sign that I was simply a placeholder until they could get their golden child back. However, they still expected me to pay. I was not going to pay their bills. I informed them that I would no longer be their ATM. I thought about it, but my mind was already made up. I was done being their backup plan. Over the next week, I discreetly packed my belongings starting with the vital ones, papers and valuables, followed by clothing and other things I couldn't live without. I didn't inform them what I was doing. I knew I would lose it if they gave me any crap about it. I had gathered a lot of stuff over the years. Weights, equipment, publications, all the garments, everything had to be cataloged. I packed carefully. I had built a wonderful set of tools that worked on the house, and I wasn't going to leave them behind for Ethan to pawn the moment I was gone. I carefully packed my grandfather's antique toolbox, the only actual inheritance I'd gotten in this family, and made sure every socket and wrench was accounted for. While packing, I was also looking for a new place. I'd been paying for a place to live a significant portion of their mortgage, so I figured I could afford my own. I found a decent place in under 15 minutes. Close to work, good layout, 2 bedrooms. There was also a balcony where I could barbecue. Most importantly, it was mine. I signed the lease on a Thursday and scheduled the move over the weekend. My parents assumed I was still thinking about their proposal. Little did they know, I was methodically distancing myself from their life. Leaving that night was intense. I waited until after midnight, partially because it felt like a prison break, and partly because I couldn't handle their queries or guilt trips. I had already transferred most of my belongings over the past few days. I told my folks I was rearranging. They noticed boxes vanishing. This last trip was for my bed, the rest of my clothing, and my gaming setup. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter with a simple note. I found my own place. Don't approach me about rent. Simple. Everything we do is straightforward and direct. The relationship was not. I loaded the last of my belongings into my truck and drove away without looking back. The following morning, I blocked both my parents and Ethan on literally everything. Phone, email. I didn't even want to use social media, including LinkedIn. He tried to contact me through work connections. For the first time in years I felt liberated. That first week in my new house was like walking into a new life. I could leave my exercise bag on the couch without Mom complaining. I could come and go without explanation. I even started meal prepping properly and got back to my training schedule without interruptions. I set up my weight bench in the second bedroom. I got all of my protein and vitamins organized in the kitchen. For once, I didn't have to explain to anyone why I needed so much chicken breast in the fridge. However, the peace didn't last. About 3 weeks after I moved out, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I had to pick up. It was my Uncle Tom. Tom and Dad had a competitive relationship since they were children. Unlike my father, Tom did not fuck. He had always been honest with me, and I respected that. He was the one I learned how to change my oil and fix a faulty faucet from, when Dad was too busy watching Ethan's high school games. "Noah, what the hell, man?" he asked. "You've just disappeared from your parents. They're about to lose their house." "What?" I was extremely surprised. "What are you talking about?" That's when Tom dropped the bombshell. It turned out Ethan had been jobless for 6 months, not just a few weeks like Mom claimed. And my parents had been surreptitiously sending him money the entire time. Not just in modest amounts, thousands every month to keep both him and Lena afloat in their pricey condo. To make matters worse, they took out a second mortgage on the house without telling me. I could barely process what I was hearing. "So let me get this straight," I said, my knuckles white as I grasped the phone. "They borrowed against the home without telling me, then expected me to continue covering their mortgage while they kept helping Ethan and Lena?" "That's right," Tom agreed. "And now they're worried because if they continue to miss payments, they might lose their house. You need to step up and fix this, Noah." I laughed. Actually, I laughed. "Fix it? Why is this my responsibility?" "They're your parents, Noah," Tom snapped. "Family takes care of each other." "Really? Where was Ethan when they needed assistance? He's been bleeding them dry for years. I've been the one keeping a roof over their heads." Tom went silent. He knew I was right. "Look, Tom, I appreciate the call. But this is not my problem. They chose Ethan like they always do. Now they can deal with the repercussions." After hanging up, I sat there in astonishment as the truth sank in like a stone. All the times they said they were a touch tight this month, when I asked if I might chip in more for utilities, it wasn't because their retirement wasn't going far enough. It was because they were funneling funds to Ethan behind my back. While I was working overtime to make ends meet, they were enabling Ethan's careless lifestyle, a betrayal that cut deep. Truly hit deep. For days, I attempted to process everything. The more I considered it, the more betrayed I felt. I had unintentionally been helping Ethan and Lena stay afloat in their pompous lifestyle, while my rent money was directed to them by my parents. So after digging this hole, they expected me to leap in and pull them out. This was not my problem. But then I started thinking about the house itself. I grew up there. Put in a lot of work. A small part of me didn't want to watch my parents lose it even if our relationship was in the toilet. I'd spent weekends renovating the roof, replacing obsolete wiring, and repairing plumbing. That sweet equity would vanish if the bank foreclosed. Also, if I was going to continue paying for something, I wanted it to benefit me, not just fuel Ethan's sense of entitlement. So I created an offer. When I arrived at the house, Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad scarcely glanced at me as he let me in. I wasn't surprised to see Ethan. Lena was also seated there. Ethan had that arrogant expression on his face, as if he'd already won whatever game they were playing. He had gained weight and was wearing a showy watch which probably cost more than 1 month's rent. Typical Ethan. Broke, but keeping up appearances. "I understand about the second mortgage," I said immediately, standing with my arms folded and watching their faces. Mom's hopeful expression immediately twisted into guilt. Ethan just scowled, perplexed. "Tom told me everything," I added. Mom sighed. "Tom ought to mind his own business." "Maybe, but I'm glad he didn't. Otherwise, I'd still have no idea you were using my money to pay for Ethan's expenditures." Dad began to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. I'm not here to fight or rehash the past. I have a solution that benefits everyone." I laid it out. I proposed that I take over the house totally in my name, managing the mortgage legally. A true official transfer. They could continue to live there, but only if Ethan and Lena paid at least their fair share of rent. The same rent I'd been paying since I was 23. Mom hesitated. "This is our family home. We won't just sign it over to you. You act like it's meaningless." "It isn't nothing," I responded, keeping my voice stable. "It's your chance to keep it instead of losing the entire house. Currently the bank owns more of it than you do. If you continue to miss payments, they'll take it back. This is your best shot." Ethan jumped in. "You can't just walk in and take something that doesn't belong to you. This was supposed to be my inheritance," he said, his voice rising with every syllable. "You've always been jealous of me trying to outdo me. Now you're using Mom and Dad's situation to steal what should be mine." I laughed right in his face. "Your inheritance, Ethan? You've scarcely stepped foot in this house in 10 years. I've been here looking after mom and dad and paying the bills, while you've been living your life 3 states away and bleeding them dry. His face turned red, but he had no comeback. He just sputtered about how I didn't understand his situation and how the job market was terrible right now. Rich, coming from a guy who'd had 5 different jobs in the last 3 years, none of which he'd held for more than 6 months. I'm not trying to steal anything, I said calmly but firmly. But I'm not going to keep putting money into a sinking ship without expecting anything in return. If you want to stay, you need to contribute. Otherwise that's fine, but I won't pay for you to stay here for free while I struggle on my own. The room went silent. Eventually Dad spoke. We'll think about it. I nodded. Take as much time as you need, but remember the bank won't wait. You're already months behind. Payments are the only way you'll get my assistance. As I turned to go, Ethan couldn't resist one last dig. This is bullshit, he muttered. You've always been trying to prove you're better than me. I just smiled. No, Ethan. I don't have to try. I just have to show up. The expression on his face was priceless. I think that was the first time I had actually stood up to him directly. Mom gasped, as if I had slapped someone. Dad just stared at the floor. But it felt amazing. Damn good to finally express what I'd been thinking all these years. For a week, I didn't hear anything. I assumed they were still arguing over it. Or more likely, Ethan was trying to persuade them to hold out for a better offer, or find another sucker to help them out. Probably figured if they ignored me long enough, I'd cave and just give them money with no strings attached. That's how it had always worked before. Then, out of nowhere, Lena called me. Her voice was shaking with fear. She told me Ethan hadn't paid a single cent toward the mortgage, even after they obtained a foreclosure notice. He was insisting that I was merely attempting to lure everyone into giving me the house and that it wasn't his obligation. But Lena wasn't buying it anymore. I don't want to lose the house, Noah, she said, her voice trembling. I know your offer is reasonable. I've been looking for a job, but Ethan keeps repeating that I don't need to work. Something will work out. He spent days playing video games and going out with his friends while my parents were worried about losing everything. If I don't do something right now, she continued, I'll end up. She proceeded to describe how Ethan would leave the house at midday, claim he was networking, then come home drunk at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Mom was still doing his laundry and making excuses for him, even as the foreclosure notices piled up. I honestly felt sorry for Lena. She wasn't a horrible person, she was just stuck with my entitled brother. So I made her a new offer. Same deal as before, with one change. Ethan must leave if he refuses to pay the rent. Lena could stay, but he was out. I can't kick my own brother out, I explained. But I can determine the terms if he wants to stay in my place. If he can't comply with those requirements, he has to leave. Lena agreed to present my offer to everyone. Part of me wondered if she secretly hoped Ethan would decline and that she'd have an excuse to leave him. The next meeting was a complete shit show. As soon as I mentioned rent, Ethan completely lost his mind. He jumped up, knocked over a coffee mug with his chair, and started yelling every insult he could think of, calling me a greedy bastard, accusing me of manipulating everyone. He even got in my face and tried to intimidate me, but I stood my ground. I had been dealing with his temper tantrums our entire lives. I wasn't about to back down now. You think you're so much better than me? He roared, his face inches from mine. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. That's what this is about, isn't it? You're still that poor little boy who couldn't handle not being the favorite. I didn't take the bait. This isn't about who's the favorite, Ethan. This is about responsibility. You had a free ride your entire life, and now the bill is due. He spat. Fuck you, I don't need your help. I'm gonna make it big any day now. I've got prospects. Prospects don't pay the mortgage, I said simply. Mom and Dad tried to play peacemaker, but it was clear they still sided with him. Mom kept saying, Ethan is going through a hard time right now. While Dad just glanced at the floor, defeated, as if he realized I was right but couldn't force himself to stand up to Ethan or Mom. Standing in the doorway, I said, if you're not willing to accept the help I'm offering, I can't do anything else. Best of luck with the foreclosure. Walking away wasn't easy. I kept telling myself it wasn't my responsibility to fix my parents' mistakes. But that unpleasant voice in my head kept whispering, what if they lose the house? What if it's your fault? This time I refused to let guilt take control of me. I had done my part. I had given them a way out. They chose to reject it. That was their decision, not mine. Months passed. My life got better. I started dating a physical therapist named Claire, got promoted at work, Started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes twice a week. My apartment finally felt like home. For the first time in years, I realized how much I had missed. Not anything extraordinary, just the simple freedom to live on my own terms. No one questioned why I needed so much freezer space for meal prep. No one makes snarky remarks about my obsession with exercise. No one made me feel like I was taking up space that rightfully belonged to someone else. Lena called me once more, crying so hard I could barely understand her. The bank was officially moving forward with the house purchase. The foreclosure wasn't just a warning anymore, it was happening. Ethan had refused to even consider my offer. Their fights had gotten so bad, the neighbors had called the cops twice. "I can't do this anymore, Noah," she cried. "I have nowhere to go. Ethan maxed out all our credit cards. His friends have stopped letting him crash. Your parents are on their last nerve. The stress is causing health issues. Your mom's blood pressure is through the roof. Your dad looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 3 months. Please, if there's anything you can do." She told me about Ethan's lies and how he told everyone he had job interviews that didn't exist. How he even borrowed Dad's emergency credit card and racked up charges at bars and restaurants. When confronted, he exploded in rage, screaming that everyone was against him. I felt Lena deserved better than this. I felt sorry for her. My parents and Ethan, not her, had created this mess. I decided to give it one last shot. This time there was no room for negotiation. I would buy the house. But the title had to be transferred to my name immediately. Ethan, Lena, and my parents could stay, but Ethan would have to pay rent. If he refused, he had to go. And I made it clear. I wasn't covering any more of Ethan's expenses. This was my final offer. I told Lena they could take it or leave it, but I wasn't going anywhere. To my surprise, my parents finally agreed. I guess the fear of losing the house was stronger than their need to protect Ethan's ego. Even Ethan didn't fight much this time, though the look on his face made it clear he was furious. That day, we signed the documents and transferred the house to my name. It didn't feel real. My mom kept dabbing her eyes with a tissue, like she was signing away a child instead of a deed. My dad just looked at the house with slumped shoulders, signing where the lawyer pointed without reading the docs. Ethan wasn't there. Couldn't bother to show up for something this important. Typical. Just like that, I bought the house I grew up in. The house I'd been helping pay for since I was 23. The house that was supposed to be my inheritance someday. Someday had finally arrived. But not the way any of us imagined. I had always disliked him. Mom slumped in cries and wails about how her family was being torn apart. Dad simply sat at the kitchen table, looking blankly ahead. My folks were outraged. They accused me of being heartless, of leaving my family when they needed me most. However, I had heard it all before, and this time, it did not work. If they wanted to help Ethan, they could leave with him. I told them exactly what I told Ethan. This is my house now. Firmly. I had given Ethan additional chances. He was given 3 months to get his act together. He hadn't. I tried, but I am not operating a charity. "He's your brother," Mom screamed. "How can you do this to your own flesh and blood?" "Same way you had no issue kicking me out to make space for him," I replied. "Same way you lied to me for years about where my money was going. You never stood up for me when Ethan treated me like crap." That silenced her. To my astonishment, they actually left. Reluctantly packed and moved out. The only one willing to take them in was Uncle Tom. The same one who lectured me about how families should stick together. Isn't karma a bitch? Tom lives in a modest 3-bedroom house. Must have been a dreadful change for my parents. Mom and Dad had to get part-time jobs at a hardware store just to pay their bills. Ethan, of course, went with them. He believed he was somehow the victim in all of this. I heard through the grapevine he was sleeping on a pull-out couch in Tom's home office, whining constantly about the lack of privacy. Lena didn't last more than a week with them. One evening she arrived at my door with a suitcase. "I'm done," she simply said. "I can't live like that anymore. Ethan refuses to get a job, and your mother still treats him like he's 12. She makes him lunch every day." At 32, Lena was actually trying to get back on her feet. I let her stay in the spare bedroom for a while. She landed a job at a local boutique quickly and eventually moved into her own place. I don't blame her for getting divorced. Ethan had been dragging her down for years. For me, everything just got better from there. Owning a house gave me a sense of security I'd never had before. For the first time, I had a place that was truly mine. I remodeled and converted the kitchen. Ethan's old room became a home gym power rack, bench, full dumbbell set. I built a fire pit in the backyard, replaced the old carpet with hardwood floors, painted the walls, and finally fixed the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, the one Dad had been meaning to get to for a decade. A year later, my girlfriend Claire, 28, moved in. We got married in a small ceremony. I didn't invite my parents. Maybe not Ethan either. We've been crushing it ever since. Claire opened her own physical therapy practice, and I launched my own medical equipment distributorship after learning the industry from the inside out. About 6 months ago, karma struck. I was leaving the gym when my phone rang, another unknown number. It was my father. "Noah," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I know we haven't talked in a long time, but we need help." Turns out Tom had had enough. He was done with the drama and Ethan's refusal to contribute anything. He gave them 30 days to find another place to live. Mom had been diagnosed with high blood pressure from the stress. Dad's part-time job barely covered their meds. "What about Ethan?" I asked. "Where's he in all this?" Dad sighed. "He moved to Florida with some friends. Said he needed a fresh start. He hasn't called in months." I nearly laughed. Of course Ethan bailed when things got real. The golden child had abandoned the throne when it became too much work to sit on it. "So now you're calling me?" I asked. "After everything?" "Son. Please." Dad's voice cracked. "We were wrong. We've always been wrong about you. You were the one who was there for us. We chose Ethan every time. I don't expect you to forgive us, but we don't have anywhere else to go." I thought about telling them to figure it out themselves the same way they once told me. But I'm not like them. I'm better. There's a small apartment over the garage I've been renovating. Finally I said, "You can stay. Temporarily. But there are conditions. You pay what you can for rent, even if it's just a few hundred. You don't mention Ethan to me or to Claire. And you openly acknowledge that you were wrong." There was silence on the other end. "Thank you, Noah," Dad said. "I don't deserve it, but I appreciate it." They moved in last month. It's been awkward. Mom cried when she saw all the renovations I'd made to the house. Dad actually shook my hand and looked me in the eye for the first time in years. They've been walking on eggshells. It's a complete reversal from how things used to be. Last week I overheard Mom on the phone with one of her church friends. "My son Noah runs his own business now," she said with that same proud tone she used to reserve only for Ethan. "He was always the responsible one. It shouldn't matter, but somehow, it does. Mom's been trying to make amends in her own way. Brings over dinner sometimes. Offers to help Claire with the garden. Dad's been more straightforward. He actually sat down with me last weekend and apologized. He said he was always proud of me, he just didn't know how to express it, that he had let Mom's obsession with Ethan define our family dynamic for too long. In many ways, it's too little, too late, but it's something. As for Ethan, the last I heard, he got fired from a bartending job in Miami. He was begging Mom for money again. She told him she couldn't afford it anymore. Baby steps, I suppose. 2 weeks ago, I received an email from Ethan. Just one line. "I hope you're happy now. You turned everyone against me." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh. But then I remember all those years I spent as an afterthought. The backup plan. The safety net. I refused to keep being the responsible one while receiving nothing in return. The house that was supposed to be Ethan's inheritance? It's where my child will be raised. Claire is about to become a mother. Our first child is a boy. And trust me, if we have more kids, they'll all be loved equally. Edit update. Holy shit. This blew up overnight. Thank you everyone, I've received awards and a lot of support. Many of you have asked for updates on Ethan, so here's the latest. He's back in Minnesota, currently living in a crappy apartment and working at a cell phone store. Still calls Mom frequently asking for loans which everyone knows will never be repaid. He even had the nerve last week to try reaching out to Claire on Facebook, hoping she'd talk some sense into me. She blocked him immediately. Dad has been stepping up more recently, fixing up the apartment over the garage, making it more comfortable for them. Mom still makes excuses for Ethan. Still gives that martyred expression sometimes. But she's trying with Claire, and I respect that. As for me, business is good. Claire's pregnancy is going well. And for once, I slept peacefully at night knowing I finally stood up for myself. Some of you called me an asshole for how I handled things. And maybe I was. But after more than 30 years of being the family doormat, I'm fine with that. Edit 2. In case you were wondering about Lena, she's doing fantastic. She's got her own house, started taking classes at the community college, and is dating a good guy who actually has a job. We still grab coffee occasionally. She's genuinely becoming friends with Claire, which is a plot twist I didn't expect, but honestly, it's kind of wholesome. And yes, I did change all the names in this story. Not that Ethan would read anything longer than a tweet, but still, safer.